Yeah.
10 years ago.
Geraldine's in the house.
Okay,
Hi.
Geraldine. And are you gonna know? I want to say a few things about
No,
Geraldine.
you introduced her. I have to step away for a few minutes, so
You want
she's
to get
on.
food,
Yeah, go ahead.
and
Take,
Joan,
take
you can
over.
jump in. But is she on screen? Where
Oh,
Neil?
where is he, Neil?
I'm setting her right
Neil.
now. She'll be on in a second.
Okay. All
Oh,
right. He's setting her
okay,
as a
okay.
panelist.
As she's coming on, I want to say Geraldine Orozco has risen, I feel, to the top. I mean, of this community with her intentions and her purity. I think that's why she really speaks from a very clear center, a very grounded sense of herself and her relationship to the cosmos and the greater mind. And that's why you're busier than ever, Geraldine, aren't you? You are just, every day I see you on some webinar or conference. Congratulations.
Hello, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, Joan, Neil. Thank you so much, Alan, for that wonderful introduction. It's such a gift to be here. Yeah, these are busy times for us. I was hearing a couple things. Joan was saying earlier that this is kind of the time that we're kind of called to do the work that we're supposed to be doing. And I made a complete surrender of my own life to be focusing on this work about 5 years ago. It was like, universe, do whatever you need to do with me to get what needs to be done right now. I'm yours. And so it's never been a second thought or doubt about things that are happening. So it's just been a wonderful, wild ride.
Has this year been busier than in the past?
This
Or
year has been busier in a very unique way. The interest of the interdimensional is growing. So we have to kind of step up our game as to how we're explaining the interdimensionality, how we're educating about it. And we have to start preparing for education for children, because I think that's the future, and hopefully creating communities. So it's kind of changing into more of a physical, tangible thing, as opposed to other years where perhaps it was a little bit more theoretical in a sense, and maybe just in the mind. Now it's like practical action. Let's bring it into the everyday world. Yeah.
And for me, that suggests we're getting closer to this nexus point, to this shift. Right, Joan? Yes. Okay.
I can't wait to hear what Geraldine has to say.
Okay, go ahead, Gerald.
I just can't wait.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Let me just make sure that I have my right presentation here. I wanted to make sure that I have what I want to share with you.
Always excited about what you have to share because it's original.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's such a gift to be here. And I'd love to start off just talking a little bit about, first of all, let's talk about this interdimensionality and contact. This conference is called Beyond ET Contact, and we're talking about how we come into the role of connecting with the interdimensional. For me, I'm a lifelong contactee since the age of 5. My first contact was literally inside of my parents' bedroom when I was playing with toys, and a brilliant light comes into the room, and I have missing time. Probably from like 7 p.m. to about 11 p.m. at night. I find myself in my crib, sleeping and not remembering what happened in between that time, except flashes of light that was just so prominent, so visual, and I couldn't get that memory out of my mind. Now I understand that these kinds of memories are called marker memories, which I work a lot with my clients daily in hypnotherapy sessions, kind of going and revisiting and discovering what these kinds of experiences are about. My second contact experience was at the age of 8, where I had an experience of being taken on board a craft and being implanted in the physical body. And then later on, when I lived in South America during high school, I was taken in on board a craft, and I had missing time for several hours, walking home from work one day because I used to teach English. And I found myself in my bed at like 3 a.m. I didn't remember how I got from the school to my bed during that entire time. And that was actually the first time that I experienced participation in the hybridization program. And so later on, years later, I experienced a pregnancy without being partnered for the first time. And during this experience, I became very ill as a result of that. A lot of changes, a lot of experiences, a lot of memories of dreams that I had. But I wasn't understanding the connection between the dreams, which were, on board craft, on top of tables, being experimented on, having these experiences, seeing these beings, interacting with these beings. And I didn't understand that the connection was directly related to that pregnancy at the time. Later on, years later, I had the same thing happen to me. Same process, same sequence of events. And again, later on, happened a couple times after that. So let's move it forward to 2009, where I had this experience of things beginning to change in my life. And I began to go deeper into meditation work. And I began to deprogram and deconstruct belief systems. I had this insatiable thirst to understand what truth is, and in order to understand my reality and what the construct of reality as we know it, the roles that we play as humans. So I began to deconstruct all of that, and I entered a point of complete neutrality. It was a work that required a lot of bravery and really going beyond comfort zones to quite an extent. And we're not talking about comfort zones of doing things, but internal comfort zones that we have with little emotions that we have with ourselves, fears that we have about ourselves, truths about ourselves. So when I began to deconstruct all of that, I reached a point of complete neutrality in which this entire multiverse began to open for me. And it was at that point that I reached some kind of vibrational frequency that I began to enter into the next level of our reality, of our multidimensionality, which I began to have contact interdimensionally consciously. And so in 2013, a bright light filled up my room, and I got out of bed. The time was exactly 3:33 in the morning. And as I approach my window, my entire body paralyzes, and I am removed out of my room into the top of my garage, where 6 beings are approaching me from a light, a gigantic light, which froze time and space around me, could not hear or even see anything moving. It was as if time had frozen completely. And I had feelings of terror, but they removed the emotion out of me. And I was able to be taken into the craft. And as it took me into the craft, which is very organic, the most advanced technology that you could ever imagine, I began to be shown information. I saw my aunt there physically, and she also remembers the contact. When I went public about my contact, my family began to speak about their contact as well. And also began to kind of link a lot of pieces together about how ET contact is, it's cyclical. It goes down the generationals. There's a line, and what we really want to learn is, what this hybridization program is about. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But on board the craft, we also took a look at information about this alien language that was shown to me in holographic form. And this was incredibly impactful, powerful, and allowed me to understand beyond the human perception of seeing things, how concepts have to be more universal rather than just physical and just one dimensional. So that it really just completely cracked open my ability to see and perceive things. As a result of that, they introduced me to information. They took me to the Pleiades. I saw the Pleiades. I saw what I was in the Pleiades. I was a part of a council. I was doing some kind of teaching work similar to what I'm doing now. And I wasn't at that moment understanding what they were showing me, but now I know that basically it's what I was going to be doing now in these years that we're existing now. So aside from that, they introduced me to my hybrid children. And from this incredible blue hologram appeared these 8 layers, and from every single layer that they would manifest this incredible information. They would show me these 8 little lights, and from the 8 little lights, 4 manifested into living children. And these children were hybrids. They were a combination of both human and a whole mixture of genetic information, which means they were kind of a grayish looking skin. They look like grays, and they also look like humans. They also look like reptilians. You can also see some features of mantid within these beings. So it was a mixture, and you couldn't quite see it as just a regular human. And so as a result of seeing this, an incredible maternal feeling came over my body, and a connection of knowing and integration with these children. And it completely changed my paradigm that very moment, because I thought, how could I forget that this happened, you know? And I began to realize that all of my life experiences of pregnancy and contact from childhood were all leading up to this moment here. And by the time, well, I'll finish with letting you know that I was also shown the matrix. They showed me the construct of our reality. What is the matrix? What does it mean to live in this hologram? How do we co-create? And they showed me this by showing down to the nanomolecular level of every cell and every organism on this planet, how it's oscillating to create this network, and within a network of consciousness. So all of this wasn't 100% clear yet until years later. When I returned from that experience, the interesting thing is that I completely activated all these psychic abilities. And by the time I got to my office on Monday morning to teach meditation, I could see the entire multidimensional body of this student that came to my room, to my classroom. And I could see, her emotions. I could feel them. I could see them in the body. I could see energy in the body, colors. I could see runways of energy, connections, the people that she was interacting with, people that she was linking with, cords that were connected to her body. And I began to see the world in a completely different way. But it was incredibly impactful, and I could not leave my house for about 3 months after that, because I was highly, highly sensitive. And the contact continued to occur, different kinds of contact. Fast forward years later, in 2017, I decided to go deeper into this information, to question it, to understand it. And I got hypnotherapy. And as a result of the hypnotherapy and continued meditation work and clearing of the subconscious mind, I began to tune in to some kind of pure form of information, and I began to channel this information. So in these hypnotherapy sessions, I was shown a map of the Earth, and I was shown from the very beginning of conception of life on this planet, how it had evolved through these very specific bloodlines, through history, starting in the very root of life, moving all the way up into Europe and developing out into the society and world, compartmentalized world that we know today. And basically, a very profound understanding of what the hybridization program is, and essentially that each one of us here on this earth is a product of that hybridization program. I discovered that I had 24 hybrid children and participated in many different programs. You can call them agendas, some of which were part of Pleiadian groups, some of which were part of Draconian groups, and there were several ranges of participation that I was a part of. So aside from that information, it helped us kind of understand how we are participating, how we are co-creating. And my biggest question was, what is free will? And what role do we play in all of that? So we began to go all the way back to the very beginning of time. And I found myself at the feet of Jesus, working with Jesus, and a connection between his bloodline, and a connection going all the way back to Nefertiti, going all the way back to these very, very ancient bloodlines. And I was a product of that bloodline, and going through this bloodline, going all the way to the Magdalene Chronicles, going all the way to, I forget the name, the Italian houses, going up into France, and having a lot of connections with these very occult, private families that were managing basically everything that we know as society today in France, and then going into England, and then in the US, and bloodlines that were also going down to South America. So This took me into a little bit deeper study as to how these lines are developing, and I talk about this in other presentations. But today, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how we are, manifesting in this incredible form of ET consciousness. And let me just open this up. I'm going to share this presentation with you. So, come back up here. So, one of the things that I discovered, as, can you see that? Okay. Okay. One of the things that I discovered in the multidimensional body after doing some very deep interwork, not only with myself, but with many clients as I work with them, is I began to discover that we are multidimensional beings, and that within our multidimensionality is actually encoded all of this information. I was able to access my information by deprogramming. I was able to access my information through meditation and by going within in order to understand. After that deprogramming, it opened up an entire new wave of frequency where I began to unpack the history of my bloodline and my existence. And it took me to past lives. I revisited all of my past lives, and I reintegrated the fragments of myself from those past lives in order to understand the cyclical patterns that I'm experiencing in this lifetime. Why is this relevant to ET contact? Because in the same way that our genetic information is holding information that tells the body how to build this physical hologram, we also, within that, is contained the information of every single species that you are interconnected to. And as a product of the hybridization program, which we all are, we begin to understand that all of these bloodlines give us information into way more than just, let's say, archetypes of consciousness. In this multiverse, information seems to self-organize in a very beautiful manner, in a very, very intelligent manner. It becomes a blueprint of creation. And just if we look at nature, nature has a very unique balance, a unique way of maintaining an instruction manual to maintain a balance. And even though there is death as part of that balance, everything functions exactly as it should happen. And the human race, our human organism, is exactly in that same way, and it's also functioning in that same way. So this image that I'm showing you here, this is what you look like in the multidimensional plane. And basically, we are kind of existing on some kind of a net plane that has an axis. And in this axis, horizontal and diagonal axis, we are beginning to access information about ourselves in multiple different dimensional frequencies. We have the ability of tuning in to past life information and even fragments of ourselves that are ET aspects of ourselves. And how do we access this information? All of this is organized by vibrational frequency. I color-coded these with different colors to represent different vibrational frequencies. As you can see, the red, for example, represents the lowest vibrational frequencies, the lowest points of consciousness. The lighter colors going up to a whites or the blues represent the higher vibrational frequencies. And within these higher vibrational frequencies, whether they're terrestrial aspects of ourselves or interdimensional aspects of ourselves, we are kind of cycling through self-similar patterns of that information. So what that means is that when we have ET contact, our vibrational frequency has risen to a higher point in which we have the ability to access this information. And it's really important because you are unlocking fragments of yourself that require awareness. And even more than that, in the bigger picture, this is part of the higher the higher development, the higher evolution, the natural evolution of where we're at right now in this multidimensionality. And how we are kind of moving through all of this information, how the universe is moving is in the same way that our human body is moving in this multiverse. And I will show you that in just a moment here. Okay, so the entire, let's see, am I showing you the right thing? Yes. The entire multiverse and the way that it works, every single one of these organisms, we are vortices of information. The movement of every single molecule of every cell is oscillating to create a toroidal field. And this kind of toroidal moment creates a spherical kind of emanation. The product of that is a spherical expression. And we are that. The cells in our body create that same expression. Your entire multidimensional body creates that expression. The earth creates that expression, the multiverse as well. And we are a combination of these. When you deconstruct this toroidal field, you're creating these vortices that have this center point at the center point, which we call singularity. It's the point where those two dualistic energies are meeting. So as a result of this, it's really important to understand that when the movement of this is interrupted, it's not moving, we are having counter-creative experiences. So even in our ET contact, we are experiencing things of lower vibrational frequency. When we speed up this vortex, we begin to access higher bands of information. We have contact with higher frequency aspects of ourselves. The ETs and all of these organisms that we are interconnected with in the multiverse are an expression of ourselves in a sense, because we are one. And this is kind of the message that I'm here to contribute to this conversation, that rather than looking at ETs or the different races as something as separate than yourself, we really need to kind of take a look at this as it's actually a part of yourself, and you play a role in a bigger picture of this whole multiverse. In all of these different galaxies and all of these different constructs and expressions of life form, what's moving the information is vibrational frequency, it's resonance. And our frequency and our resonance becomes a magnet to what we're going to experience. Our families are created this way, our bloodlines are created this way. Our ancestral lineages are constructed and designed in that way. And you come in contact with the races that are also in resonance with your vibrational frequency. So I'll have many clients that have very low vibrational frequency experiences, very traumatic experiences, and they can shift from those experiences. But you have to remember that, especially during this time of heightened evolutionary process that we're going to, it's necessary for you to experience all of the spectrum. And this is kind of the relationship of the unknown that we are learning how to cultivate within us. We are learning how to cultivate a neutral observation persona. More than a persona, it's the embodiment of that neutral observation that allows you to navigate all potential unknowns and experiences. And this is kind of the experience that we also have to train for when it comes to death. In 2018, I had a near-death experience in which leaving the body allowed me to begin to understand how this vortex of a physical body is constructed. And what happens when you leave the physical body is that you're entering another dimensional plane, but you're still quite connected to the information of the physical, and even more so, you have access to the non-physical, everything that you didn't see when you were in your physical body. But we can cultivate that. And through history, we have been training, we've been taught, and we have been invited. If we look at ancient cultures and their study about death was highly revered in every single culture around the world. because this is a way for us to understand that the ability to become friends with the unknown is the training of this physical organism in its ability to navigate into these higher planes. Now, these ET consciousness, all of these different races that we're interconnecting with, are different vibrational frequencies on different levels. And we have access to them through our physical body. Let me see if I can find that slide right here. By when we leave death, so for example, the first 3 chakras are the ones that maintain and manage this physical plane. But when you begin to activate your higher vibrational frequencies, death, you're moving from the 8th chakra, 9th, 10th. So these upper 3 chakras, 8, 9, and 10th, are the realm of death. You're going into the Akashic records, into the angelic realms, and you're beginning to access this information. And beyond that is when we start accessing our interdimensionality. We begin to access different vibrational frequencies from the 10th to the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th dimensional plane. This is usually where the majority of ET contact occurs. Okay, so keep that in mind, that when you're activating your body and you're astral traveling or astral projecting, you're accessing that information. But not only that, a lot of these ET races have unique vibrational frequencies, and the way that they're organized, they're not organized by species. We have to get away from the idea of species, because species is a cocktail of DNA at this point. All living beings have somehow had genetic mutations along the historic line, since the origin of life on this planet. And so we are ever evolving, and we have to keep that in mind. So our human perception wants to categorize these species with certain names and certain traits, but what we need to look at them as is vibrational frequency, because within the hybridization program, we have been hybridized, and so have they. They also are a product of hybridization. And what hybridization really means is that when you combine different genetic information, the organism now has access to all of the data bank, the historic data bank of this species that is introduced into that genetic lineage. And it's the same for you. For example, if you have Pleiadian or Arcturian bloodline, you have access to the knowledge, to the tools, to the abilities that each one of these different bloodlines inherit. And you have access to those healing abilities, you have access to those, to that information. This is incredibly important for us because some of us are designed to be creators. Some of us are designed to speak about this, to heal. Each human has their own gifts that they're very specifically designed to embody. And when you start activating your star fragments of yourself, you can take your gift to the next level. This is kind of where we're entering into a new state right now, where we want to access interdimensional gifts because our interdimensional reality is merging more with the physical. And we're seeing this with artificial intelligence. We're seeing this with all kinds of things in our reality. Your body is the most advanced biotechnology in this matrix multiverse, because within your genetic code is the key to accessing all these things. In fact, you're a co-creator of holographic experience. Everything in this picture that I'm showing you, this man here, in this entire and all these different fields of energy that are around his body, this is his world. This is his universe. He has access to the 13th dimensional plane and even beyond, and he has access to the first dimensional plane. So we walk around every single day with all of this data available to us, if and when we are willing to access that. Unfortunately, the majority of us, we are still interacting in the first 3 chakras. So our experiences are going to be only repetitive patterns of our karmic cyclical reincarnation information. And so it's really important to be able to transcend that information. You are transcending many things. You're transcending karma, the concept of what is that, cause and effect. And cause and effect is just the way that things are responding to intention in this multidimensional reality. But if you shift the way that you intend to create things, you can shift the outcome. So we become masters of co-creation, and that's kind of where we want to come on and step into the plate and begin to do that. We can do that with this interdimensional contact as well. Why is it important to train ourselves in these higher dimensional planes? Because right now we have been faced with a major adversity over the past couple of years, where there's been major mass manipulation of our reality, in a sense, in which we are heavily manipulated by fear, particularly your first three chakras. And so what that means is it's kind of an attack on the human organism, where we're kind of put a veil over the eyes to make you see something that isn't actually occurring in that same way. And so why we experience this over the past couple years is for the human to train themselves to create their reality. And this is the key. And it's the key to management of this dimensional reality. And it's the key to navigation of the higher dimensional planes. So when we have contact experience on these higher dimensional planes, our abilities that we inherit, let's say from our Lyran bloodlines, Syrian bloodlines, Arcturian bloodlines, give us access to telepathy. They give us access to multidimensional healing. They give us access to telepathy, to telekinesis, to working with energy and life force. And our human bodies are designed to be able to master life force. So this is incredibly important. And this is one of the things that when I was taken on board craft to the Pleiades, this is how these beings navigate in this plane. It is about the exchange of life force. It is a complete awareness of yourself and the expression of the work and everything that you're sharing with the multiverse in order to cultivate a very profound practice of the work that you're doing. And this is where when we think of the technology, the advanced technology that's coming online in the next couple of years right now for medicine and for healing and for, everything from energy to food production to education, the tools that we need to utilize for the next generation have to be funded in this understanding of multidimensionality. Otherwise, they won't work, because our entire multiverse is kind of moving towards this direction. Our multiverse is moving towards a more organic state of creation. And so our human body is the perfect embodiment and example of this. So in any way, when we are working in this physical body, in order to heal the body, it is necessary to learn how to master that. And when we are meditating and beginning to deprogram all of these old programs that are binding us to the physical dimensional plane, we have access to this information. And in my opinion, it's very important to not get too stuck on the concept of the stories around the experiences that you're having, but more so moving quickly through these experiences and learning, continuing to learn as much as possible as you're having them. How am I doing on time? I just want to check really quickly.
Let me see. I think. Actually, keep talking. I'll get back to you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go on for another 10 minutes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So, that being said, what I'd love to share with you is, in some of this contact with ETs, one of the things that's really important when it comes to connecting is that your vibrational frequency is at the highest point possible. Many of my clients experience low vibrational experiences when their frequency lowers into a fear state. And what we've been discovering in my groups at hybridmother.com, which is the support group that I'm leading, is that a lot of hybrid parents, for example, that are experiencing the hybridization program, they are participants and have agreements to participate in these things that are designed and pre-designed before the soul even comes into the physical body. And what that means is that we're participating in a higher co-creation of this multiverse, and as if it were an organism. Just the way your physical body is an organism, this multiverse also requires sustainability in order to maintain itself at this level. So all the hybrid children that are being born on the earth are highly activated, they're highly advanced, and they are remembering a lot more of their past experiences, because at the time of birth, this veil that we used to have for the past, however many centuries that we've been experiencing the slower cycle movement of the multiverse. Right now, we're going through a higher cycle of the multiverse where everything is speeding up. And through this heightened movement, this veil, which people call the veil, seems to be thinning, but it's just that we're moving at a higher rate. And so these children, when you're moving and oscillating at a higher rate, you have the ability of going beyond the limitations of time and space of the three-dimensional plane. So this is what it means to be interdimensional. This is how we begin to tune in to the vibrational resonance of 11th, 12th, 13 dimensional beings. So the children already come at that higher vibrational rate, and every single wave of generation that's going to be coming in the next 10 years is at a higher vibrational frequency. So that means that we have to continue elevating and developing our vibrational frequency in order to continue the evolution of this multiverse. So this is important to remember, because how do we get there? The work that we're doing with our body, we have to train to maintain this vortex moving as fast as possible. And this is how we maintain health in the body as well. We are able to move. Over this past couple months, I had to be in a house full of very, very ill people. And you would think that you would also get ill with that. But what I saw in the other dimensional plane is that it's resonance, it's absolute frequency. If your body is not in a frequency to become ill, you will not get ill, even if you are next to someone that has something very contagious. And what we practice is to move that vortex as fast as possible. So literally, if you feel that you're at risk, or you have a little bit of doubt in your mind that you cannot heal your body, you will become sick. So it's very important to remember that, the way that we maintain the vibrational frequency of the body is effective in the terrestrial plane as much as it is in these higher dimensional planes. And I noticed that when I do that, and also when my students have been doing that, their ET contact also rises, their ability to connect with these interdimensional beings. So this is how we create contact. It's resonance. It is your subconscious thoughts. It is the root core belief systems that you have in your body. And the more that you deprogram that, the more that you can rise up to that higher vibrational frequency. It is incredibly essential when we're talking about these ET races to understand that the races, once again, are not compartmentalized by the species specifically. Even within these groups, let's say the Pleiadian groups, when I was taken into this conscious contact, I discovered that this was a Pleiadian group, and there were grays. I didn't see humanoid type beings until I went to the Pleiades. And in the Pleiades, I saw the humanoid beings, but on board the craft, they were grays. They were very tall grays, 7-foot grays, and also shorter ones that were there. So what you learn from these several different contact experiences, also seeing councils of these different beings, which are a combination of many different species. There were Lyrans, there were these humanoids, there were these very small little beings, there were these reptilians. All of these different races are holding the vibrational frequency to maintain this certain council, and they manage a certain vibrational frequency, and they are also kind of, in a sense, caretakers of certain bloodlines that are created from their specific agendas, as you might say it. So all of these little races that are created from there are on Earth, and these bloodlines have been cultivated for centuries, since the origin of time, since the conception of life on the planet. The bloodline that I am a part of apparently has gone through all of these main bloodlines, and there are quite many people that remember their past lives. There are people that have these psychic abilities, and many of you are coming up in public and speaking about them now. But what this allows us to do, it helps us understand, let's say, like a genealogy of, it's like a holographic genealogy of the entire world. But it allows us to have a snapshot of the historic evolution, not just of the human race, but of the intervention, in a sense, or let's say the collaboration that is occurring in this multiverse with these interdimensional beings. Every single one of these councils, which I believe that's actually how this consciousness, they group themselves in councils. There are a variety of different species. Those species collaborate in order to create genetic combinations that create basically GMO humans. We are genetically modified humans. And within the data that we hold within our body, it allows us to bring unique information into this timeline. So every human being that is born at this time, it's actually really important for you to tune in to the information that's unique to you, because not only is it a holographic blueprint that is a puzzle piece to the whole, but it's going to help raise the vibrational frequency of the collective. And this is kind of what we need. We need to move society forward with the information, the concepts of illusion around the separation of things, thoughts, concepts have to be completely blurred at this point. And we are moving towards a more unified organism that's mind, body, and soul, what we're experiencing, what we're speaking, what we're doing. And on the higher levels, our navigation of these higher realms is essential, not only to the health of the body, because in order to navigate, you have to be spinning fast, but you have to be able to stay in resonance with these higher frequencies so that we can channel in what is happening. We're coming into major changes in the next couple years, and especially in 2024, things are really going to change in a very massive way. And right now, many people are relocating. And when we relocate on the earth, we are activating earth grids that are connected to our bloodlines. We're revisiting and activating codes within the bloodline, the holographic system. This is important because a lot of people are relocating right now. And it has to do with your vibrational frequency. It has to do with where you are in the earth hologram that is also expressed in the higher dimensional planes, in the 11th, 12th, 13th dimensional plane, which means that you have access to more information when you move to these different locations. So this is important to understand as well, as we're beginning to evolve. The next step of working with hybrid children is that many of these children are born into the bloodline. And when they're born, they usually, if we don't catch up as parents, oftentimes they cause a lot of conflict in the families in order to wake up until the family is aligned in resonance with that new frequency. So this is also incredibly important that for our next few years, please, mothers, fathers, focus on the cultivation and education of your multidimensionality to the child, which means that you want to try to keep them away from technology, because technology literally binds to the subconscious mind in the body. Now technology has become way more advanced in that it is more organic. It is merging with a consciousness at this point. And so we want to try to not have that merge occur at such an early age before the child has developed their own understanding of how to manage their reality. And this will also facilitate their ability to navigate in their dream time, right? When they access the higher realms. So as this multidimensional organisms, we want to continue development and hold space for that. Yeah, so I believe that's 10 minutes. I hope I didn't go over the time.
You were great. So would you say all this gaming these kids are doing is just disconnecting them from their true sense of self? I mean, it seems that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When these children are made to watch things, on the screen, when I see that with these, with the holographic eyes, I mean, what you're looking at literally is an energy that binds to different parts of their brain, and it disconnects the ability for their amygdala to begin to develop properly, the pineal gland to begin to develop properly,
Yeah.
and that's a problem. And then food will also affect the body in a negative way. So this is really, really important. Yeah.
Right.
Right. The chemicals, everything. That's very important to see that. We have to protect our children
Yeah. Yeah.
in all ways.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Geraldine.
Thank
Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. I'll see you guys soon.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Thanks.
Go check out the chat.